that every now and again. And who else is here with us tonight? We have my favorite name, Xochitl Paez. Sycophia, how are you? Gong Show, what's going on, man? The gorgeous Fidgety Aura, nice to see you. Sunrays, welcome to our channel on Twitch. Thank you for joining us. And Parasolo, welcome to our channel. We really appreciate it. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. And who else is here? Oob to Joe's Main. You've got shadow people. Yeah, you do. You got shadow people. Don't forget, if you haven't already, hit subscribe to our brand new creepypasta channel called Canada's Great Unknown. Me and Merle are hanging on out. We passed 200 subscribers today. 200 subscribers. I'm going to put the link in here. If you haven't subscribed already, we'd appreciate that. It's in our chat room right now. E-Niles, how are you? Thanks for joining us. We are 20 seconds away. Remember, Super Chat is open. We have our store available, so that way you can buy some SOR swag on our website, spacedoutradio.com. It is a good place to support the show. And you know what? We're going to have some fun here tonight. R Keith Andrews, the ET Connection. Let's have a great, great time. And Brown Dot Flop, how are you? And horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, as well as TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Great show lined up for you tonight as we have boarded the Woo train for R Keith Andrews of the ET Connection. In Hour 3, we're going to head to the swamp. Another couple of great stories from the Swamp Dweller. Fedora John joins us for the UFO Report. Shirky Poo's got the news and the thought of the Dave. Of course, it is that time of the month. Once again, we're lifelong ET Contactee R Keith Andrews discusses the purpose of aliens coming to Earth and having contact with us. Keith is not only a contactee himself, he's also highly intuitive. His gifts have helped him help counsel others for more than 30 years. Keith proclaims to be in touch with well over 50 extraterrestrial species since childhood, and he's a near-death experiencer as well. And we love him around here. We're almost at year number 7 of doing this with Keith, and I'll tell you, it never, ever ceases to amaze me how much fun this is. R. Keith Andrews, it is always a pleasure to have you here on Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, buddy?
Not bad at all. How about you?
I'm doing good. You know, life is good up here. The snow just can't make up its mind if it's going to fall, if it's not, if it's going to melt and turn to ice or not. So, you know, typical winter.
Yeah, which I'm quite happy you've got the snow up there.
Of course you are.
I'm quite content here. We don't have a whole lot.
Well, you know what? You're down in the Kelowna, British Columbia area, and you know the biggest change here that I'm noticing is you've lost about 15 pounds worth of hair. What happened?
Well, got into an argument with a lawnmower and lost. No, quite frankly, I finally decided it was time to start actually paying attention to the way I look and the way I feel. So I decided to bring my hair up to it's actually shorter now than it has been in, I guess, about 13 years.
Well, you look like a Canadian version of B. Arthur right now.
Yeah, well, trust me, I'm not. I'm number one. No. Number two, I am certainly not in her caliber as far as people knowing me.
We love you here, and our fans know you, and they love you as well. But, my friend, I got to say, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. And every time we have you on here, we have new listeners tuning in each and every night. What's it like growing up as an ET contactee as well as an intuitive?
Yeah, it's been rough. I mean, quite frankly, I grew up in the middle of the British Columbia Bible Belt. Yeah, on Vancouver Island, and I'll tell you, growing up in the Bible Belt, psychic and a ET experiencer, contactee, abductee, you name it. Life is, to say the least, it's been challenging. I do feel for the people that are just now starting to remember. Because I know it can be really disconcerting for people that are just remembering their first abductions. And I'm hearing more and more of this sort of thing coming out. I grew up on a military base, so of course everything was always supposed to be hush-hush about everything.
Do you think people are starting to wake up to their own experiences?
Yes. I'm hearing it more and more, even in my normal line of work, as it were. I'm getting more and more people waking up going, how do I deal with it?
Okay, so as we, in this scenario for our listeners, this is a very audience participation show, so as we're waiting for questions from our audience members, let's just talk to Keith a little bit here about his experiences. Keith, with you growing up in the way that you did, intuitively, and with ET Contact, I mean, how did that, or let me rephrase that. When did you realize that your life was a little bit different than everyone else's?
Honestly, I didn't know it was different, really, until I was about 10 years old. Okay, to me it was just plain normal. You saw things, you worked with it. But when I was 10 years old, I was obviously only at that point in grade 6, I guess. I was sitting at the ballpark, and, I'd seen shadows around all along, but I was sitting at the ballpark, and a young girl sat down beside me. She'd have been 16, 17 years old. And to this day, I don't know whether she asked anything or I just heard it. But what I heard was, I don't get it. I've had a boyfriend for the last 2 years. We used to do everything together. Now he won't look at me. He won't touch me. He won't even look at me. Why not? Well, of course, I'm 10 years old. She was a nice looking kid. And I just looked at her and I says, well, because he's sleeping with your best friend. And of course, at 10 years old, you're not thinking what sleeping with means. Right? Definitely. So she goes, well, what do you mean? I says, he's crawling into bed with her. Right? Well, how do you know she's my best friend? I said, technically I don't, but she looks like this, behaves like this, you met her like this. Oh my gosh, that's my best friend. I says, I know I'm overstepping, but you might want to redefine best. From that day forward, I had people lining up looking to find out what was going on with their life, what was going on. They were losing time. They were seeing things in the sky that they couldn't explain. And so I spent right before school, after school, recess, and lunch talking to people when they had a complication, but none of them would come near me during the rest of the time. And I know that sounds hokey until you realize on my 30th grad reunion, the first guy I walked in that I met there, when I walked into the room, he looks at me and goes, weren't you one of the counselors? I says, technically, no. I said, I was actually a student. I just did more work than both counselors combined.
Oh, I love it. I love it, my friend. As you've gone on and established yourself as kind of a counselor for people who have had strange and recurring contact, being intuitive, do you often see what is happening to them? Or do you just let them kind of pour their souls out to you and kind of get a visual that way?
No, I actually end up quite often seeing it. There is one, and I'm not going to give the guy's name, so we're just going to scrap that. But there was one individual in particular, I was talking to him about his encounter, and I started laying out, and I told him, I says, look, I've been watching your situation since it happened. And we got talking, I started laying it out, and he stopped, and he looks at me, and he goes, the only way you could know these facts is if you were on board that ship. I says, true, but I did tell you I'd been watching it since the day it happened. He goes, yeah, but I thought you were referring to the news. I said, I don't watch the news. Yeah. But to say the least, he was rather shocked as far as that went. But quite often I will see what's going on, even though they're unaware entirely. So I've got to be really careful that I don't go, oh, this happened, and what was this race, and I have to let them figure it out, which is one of the biggest challenges that any counselor consultant has to deal with.
All right.
But too many of them do what I call leading.
All right, we have our first question of the night. This one coming from Eric with a K down in California. He is asking, Keith, do you ever remote view the backside of the moon?
I find going there is easier. But the answer is yes.
Want to tell us what you see?
It's an entire trading center over there. When Terrans say there's nothing over there, to me, that's just a bald-faced lie. It amounts to what you would call a way station. Okay, multiple different races come and go through there. Many of them just to see what's going on this side. But yeah, it really is, like, do I remote view there? Certainly. But like I said, it's easier to go. Besides that, I got friends on the moon.
Who's your friends on the moon?
Well, there's one chap. Usually he's there by the name of Kulak. He happens to be a Srizazian. Srizazian, for those of you that don't know, is a 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptilian. Okay, they are armored, very honorable, very respectable people, but built like a freight train. And of course, Sirik, he's the commander of a flight of Vegan warships. And no, none of them are gearing up to attack Earth.
Not a one.
I love the number of people that keep coming up with that idea.
What's with the human fear that aliens are going to attack us?
We can safely blame that on virtually any sort of publicity. Humans have a simple philosophy. Fear that which you don't understand. That which you fear, strive to control. That which you cannot control, strive to destroy. And that which you cannot destroy, fear. Okay, so anytime you get shown something that's different, people are taught to go into panic. Okay, and of course, because mankind is such a volatile race to start with, their first instinct is, if we would shoot at them because they're different, they're going to shoot at us because we're different.
Right. I can see that.
But all the way through society, the fear is propagated and promoted. Which to me doesn't add up to a really useful approach.
All right. Well, let's get to another question here from our audience, and this one comes from Anthony in Michigan, who is asking, who wins the Stanley Cup this year, Keith?
The one with the most points.
Just 16 wins, man, and it ain't going to be Detroit or Vancouver. Let's just be honest with that. Let's just be honest.
I mean, the reality of it is, I don't watch sports.
I know. I
know.
Threw that in there. Just threw that in there. Football Cat is wondering, And Keith, I don't know if you've ever heard of these or not, but a lot of people are now starting to find these weird staircases in the middle of the forest. And the theory goes, if you walk up these stairs to the end, it takes you somewhere and you can disappear. And it's, from what we hear, not a happy place. Have you heard of these?
I've heard of them. I just haven't gone looking for them. Of course, they're physical locations. Right, and since I don't leave the house much, that kind of cuts down on that. But what it is, they're not always bad places. The problem is they do take you up to a different world, if you will. Like it's a different view, and the reason people see it as being a terrifying place for the most part is because they don't understand it.
Right. Okay. So, what happens when you reach the top?
Well, if we're talking about the ones that obviously at the top, you go into the upstairs ones. More often than not, it's a gateway to a, for lack of a better term, a research ship. Right, and quite often you'll run into people up there, or people or different races from different locations. It's sort of a new development in a lot of ways, where instead of coming down to abduct people, they just go, here's a staircase that leads somewhere. Care to check it out? Humans have an incredibly insatiable curiosity streak.
Very true. Let's get to Cat the Kit, who is asking, Keith, it's been a while, but I have a question for you. Who are the 6'8" female super skinnies that hang out with the Watchers who have overlapping pupils?
God, I haven't heard about them in a while. If they're who I think that he's talking about, you may well be looking at Laborians. Or more likely, Laborian hybrids. See, Watchers don't get involved, and Laborians have learned to be very, very adept at stepping back. Unless they run into Kamalians, at which point it gets to be a little bit of a mess. But I suspect they're referring to Laborian hybrids.
All right. Let's get to capital letters here. Aiden is asking, do you think there is non-humans living on Mars?
Yeah, a whole pile of them. Which makes colonizing Mars more like an invasion. The Martokians live on Mars underground. They have for centuries. Well, in all fairness, they have for millennia.
What other species are on Mars?
Well, the Martokians have a definitive alliance. They've got a treaty sort of set up with the Venusians. And, of course, the Greys come and go, which is just plain normal. And, I mean, if you're looking at living on Mars, okay, as the actual central species, there's not a whole lot. I mean, you've got your Martokians, obviously, but they do have a way station there. They've got a conference hall, maybe, might be the best way to put it.
That's up to you, man.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you, basically it boils down to, it's kind of like an airport. Whole pile of people from various races will go. Martokians are, as it were, in good standing with the consortium, so there's a lot of people that come and go. The Nordics you'll find there quite regularly.
All right, let's move on to another question here. 5900 is asking, have any of the alien races said anything about the nova from our sun?
I missed everything. I missed about, and then you went sun.
All right, about the nova from our sun.
Oh. Well, it gets comical because they're looking at that nova going, boy, this is just what a lot of them are going, this is just what Earth needs. It's just what the Terrans need, because if that nova hits the way, they're kind of gambling on whether or not it's going to take out communications altogether here. in their opinion, mankind has gotten too caught up with the immediate gratification and this reliance on technology to remember everything. Although the bigger issue is, if that EMP pulse hits properly, then we can safely say that, that finger from God, if you will, that'll stop the wars, that'll do it. It won't stop people from fighting, but it sure stop the big machines from going. But this is just a normal cycle in their eyes.
Right.
It won't do any damage to the planet itself. Right, because the Caborans are actually geared to handle that kind of overload.
Right.
But this is just a normal cycle for the sun.
Sounds good. All right, let's get to another one. Hannah wants to know, Keith, have you discovered any new ET races lately?
Yeah, I actually just stumbled across one the other day, and it's not so much a new race, but I finally ran into a Klee-Clock hybrid. They are an interesting setup, but it was just, as a matter of fact, that's why I pulled this book open. Let us take that all the way down to the bottom end here, because I just added a couple of new ones to the back end of book 2. What do we got here? Oh, yes. Newest one it's on Earth already, but the Zedarian, they are very much they're a bipedal, if you will, a bipedal fish-like race. Okay, but they've only recently come into the area. They have sent scouts down into the oceans. Okay, simply to find out what's going on under the sea. Of course, needless to say, that puts them in contact with a number of races that already live here.
All right.
Not the least of which is the sea elfid, the merfolk, and a number of other races that are down there.
All right, let's get to Eric's question here. And he is asking, are advanced humans traveling back in time to modern-day Earth?
Nope. And the reason I say it that way is because much as you can travel forward in time without any problem, you cannot come back. It's just not something that can be done. Okay, I mean, I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, so-and-so came back from the future. Doesn't happen that way. And it's a bit convoluted, but it boils down to, if you go forward in time, when you come back in time, you're not coming back. You're moving forward in your own time frame. Which is why people can't go back and kill people from the past and worry about dying. And worry about somebody else, keeling over. It's a great theory, but it doesn't, from my experience and from everybody I've talked to that deals with forward time travel, reverse time travel does not happen. Basically you jump ahead and you wait for the rest of society to catch up.
Very true. Very true. We got 1 minute here. Let's try and get in one more question. This from Catherine. What would you do if your experiences elevate with more than one species at once?
Call it a normal day. I end up a lot of the time I'm dealing as a liaison between multiple races. So, for me, it's just plain a normal thing.
I know.
Yeah, I know that it sounds nonchalant, but,
It is normal for you, abnormal for everyone else, but that's why we love you around here, R Keith. So, we're going to go to commercial break here on Spaced Out Radio here at the bottom of the hour. R Keith Andrews and the ET Connection continues here on the big show. And, of course, audience questions. If you're in one of our chat rooms, put your questions in capital letters so that way it's easier for me to find, to read to Keith. We are on the Woo train all night long. R Keith Andrews, the ET Connection. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio when we return. Stay tuned. The Woo Train hits gear number 2 next. All right, we're clear.
Okie doke. Yeah, the reason I sent you those 2 pictures was in case you knew how to show them to the audience. I figured it might add a little bit of a different twist to it.
We can figure it out, man. So let me get chat. So let me just get caught up in the chat room here because I'm a number of minutes behind. Hi, Philo Fire. No, how are you? And who else do we have joining us tonight? Oh, there's Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. And who else is joining us? The gorgeous Gloria from Casual Conversations. Tits McGee is here, filling in for a vacationing Veronica Corningstone. And, who else is here? The lovely Tina Smith. Zaxonite, what's happening? And, who else is here? Michael Gutierrez, good to see you. Ross Lambda, thanks for coming on in. Terry Brown, nice to have you here. 416 Bitcoin, good to see you. And we continue on. Magnus Zerum, always a pleasure. Tewaz, how are you? Philip Blair's here. The Philip Blair. Yancey Scott, what's happening, man? And there, we're caught up. We are caught up. The gorgeous Dirt Road, Chris Reap. Nice to have you both here. So we have a lot of new people here, and Keith is an ET experiencer and lifelong. And what we do here on this show, this one's a little bit different than what we do with our other shows, where we go straight into audience participation. And hi, Matthew Kennedy. How are you? And so Keith will ask your questions if you have any questions. Or he'll answer your questions, I should say. All you got to do is put them in capital letters. We would appreciate it. Super Chat is open. Thank you to Carlito and Cat Chaser for the amazing support. And we absolutely love it. So thank you so much. It really helps out what we do on a nightly basis. If you are new here, and if you don't know yet, my buddy Merle and I have a brand new YouTube channel called Canada's Great Unknown. It's a bunch of real stories that we are collecting to tell all of you. Weird stuff actually does happen in Canada, and it does not deal with beavers, moose, hockey, donuts, or Justin Trudeau. Thank God. Anyways, the gorgeous Avi May, nice to see you. Hi, Sensational Sherry, nice to have you here. So if you could, I would appreciate it if you go hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. We put out a brand new episode tonight, this weekend. The link I just put above, I'll put the link right back in. Oh, well, let's just try the paste button right there. And there you go. And, of course, this weekend, Lynn Wallington, the Lynn Wallington, will be back in the hot seat Saturday and Sunday with Spaced Out Weekend, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, followed by the After Hours show with Big Willie, Fedora John, Gemma Jade, and Thin Lizzy on Saturdays and Sundays. So, yeah, we got you covered on the weekends. And who will Lynn's guests be this weekend? Let me find out. Erica Busarani and Samantha Mowat. Those are her guests. Yep, those are her guests. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Let's see here. Night Gazer, how you doing? Yes, Lynn hearts you as well. Lynn hearts you as well. Thank you, Simon, for that awesome super chat. I really appreciate it. All the way from Australia. We got about 45 seconds, Keith.
Yeah, I'm just pulling a bunch of names out here. Somebody asked a question. I don't know if we're going to get to it, but I figured I'd prep for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it'll take me a while if I don't.
Do 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 do. All right, all right, all right. And 10 seconds, Keith.
Yep.
I'm way behind on the questions, so just be patient. I'll get to yours. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, as well as on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with R Keith Andrews and the ET Connection as we are taking audience questions as we go along for the big bad fun. Let's make it happen, Keith. All right, let's start off with Carlito, who is asking, are some shadow people aliens too?
Yes, technically the answer would be all of them are. The shadow people are, they're alien as in they did not originate on Earth. And the only way I can put it that they're technically and that they're off-worlders is they actually come from a different vibratory rate, which is why you don't see them most of the time. That's why they can vanish without any real functional problem.
Makes sense. Let's get over to Blocksville, brand new listener here. Thank you for joining us. Keith, do you believe that we have underground bunkers with aliens doing experiments on abducted humans?
No, do they have underground bunkers? The answer is yes. But the experiments that they do on humans are done off-world. The primary reason is they've got better equipment off-world than they've got access to here. Technically, they could bring it in, but it would show up as one heck of a power drain. So, yeah, they've got underground bunkers, and yes, humans do know about them. But they don't do any tracking at all down here. That's why you end up with people the people that get abducted, they get picked up and taken. And usually returned.
All right. Let's see what's going on here with another question. Downshift. Are souls unlimited in number?
You keep cutting out on me, but fortunately the question's right there, so that works. The answer is, from a human standpoint, the answer would be yes. Is there a limit to them? Certainly, but they also reproduce.
Very cool.
And I hate to do this to you, Dave.
Yeah, we got you on mute. Keith is actually at work right now till the top of the hour. Every time we finally get going with Keith, he has to take a phone call. It's just good. It's just good. Let's see if I can answer some of these for you guys here while we are going on. All right, Peppa H, are there other species from our solar system or only outside? According to Keith, there are many species that are in our area, and they are very much around, from Venus to Mars to many other places around. I believe he believes there's a few moons around Jupiter that are also inhabited. Of course, our moon. Now, I don't know. To me, somebody like me, it's kind of speculation. But to somebody like Keith, who has had that kind of contact, he believes that that is happening. All right. I think it was a quick one. Keith is back already. And there you are, Keith. That was a quick one. Let's go back to Peppa's question here. Are there other species from our solar system or only outside our solar system?
Oh, no, there's lots from our solar system. There's definitely a fair number of them from our solar system. To be specific, let's see. We've got Martokians from Mars, the Venusians from Venus, the Mobians from over on Mobius, the Vulcans are from Vulcan, which is right inside the sun's photosphere.
Very cool.
I haven't checked out Mercury itself to take a look, but I suspect that they're occupied there as well. Not to mention, the Archons are in the neighborhood. They're not from here, but they do pass through here on a regular basis.
All right, let's move on to another question here. This one comes from Jules. Keith, do you know of a succubus species with black eyes with white crescent pupils?
White crescent which?
Pupils.
It is just one of the many species of daemons. And yes, they will literally, if they get their way, they will literally feed on somebody's energy until that person passes away. Fortunately, that's usually a young succubus that does that.
Steve Wolf wants to know how much is below the surface of the moon and Mars, or how many beings?
How much?
How many beings? I'll change that.
I have no way of telling you the number of the population. But let's just put it this way. As far as the moon goes, it depends on the day of the week. Because the installation there does penetrate, but they are not permanently set up in the underground. On Mars, on the other hand, you're dealing with an underground civilization. So you get to figure out how to take the census.
All right, let's move on here, my friend, as we continue on. Blocksville is wondering, are some of the missing 411 people abducted by underground or abducted to underground bases by aliens?
Abducted to them by from what I understand, number one, the aliens don't take people underground after abduction. They take them off planet. As far as could some of the 411 beings have ended up in the shall we say, guest quarters of aliens? Certainly. Okay, do I have a definitive answer as to who is where? No.
All right, let's move on. Nicole is wondering, are there any aliens that look like us instead of fish and lizards and dwarves and big-eyed grays?
Actually, quite a number of them. Just for example, that was the question I told you I was looking up for and looking into. Arcturians, the Halons, the Mobians, the Nordic, the Venusians, the Zeron, the Aldebarans, Alpha Centaurans, and the Amazons to start with. I haven't finished going through book 2 yet. These are all people that could quite easily pass as humans. Although I will tell you, the Amazons will be a little hard pressed. Usually they're 7 foot plus, and you will not mistake them. They look humanoid, absolutely. But you're talking about people that are trained in war and built for it. The Mobians are the ones that you'll never know the difference because, quite frankly, Mobians they started on Earth and colonized Mobius some 40,000 years ago. In all fairness, I suspect they probably did it about 50,000 years ago. This is not the first time mankind has managed to get to this level of technology.
Okay, let's move on here. As Catherine is asking, what do aliens think of our artificial intelligence and the merging with the humanity coming shortly?
Well, the artificial intelligence, to start with, is primitive. And the concept of merging it with humanity, as in turning out a true AI, is just suicidal in their eyes. Now, using AI as a supplement to operate artificial limbs to make sure that the right signals can get through, i.e. creating cyborgs, makes practical sense. But you do not give an artificial intelligence to an active race. And one of the reasons for that, let's see if I got this right. Zotar, I think. Yeah, no, that's wrong. Just looking for the actual race that it fits. There we are. The Xenon. Then the off-worlders run-in with the Xenon is why they look at it and go, do not put AI into a mechanical item, because it will come to the conclusion that wiping out the cellulars is just a bad, biologics is just a logical thing and will solve the problem.
Right. Okay, let's move on, Keith, because we got a plethora of questions here. Blocksville is asking, have you seen what some people think humans will look like in the future, and they predict that we will look like the Greys?
Well, I can't argue with what they predict. There is no doubt the skull will end up getting bigger. Will everybody end up short, gangly leg, gangly armed, or gangly limbed with big eyes? No. That's not the way the human genome is likely to evolve. I get a kick out of the concept, if that's any help.
All right.
But no, I don't argue. Some people think they'll look like Greys, but everything I've looked into says, no, that ain't the way the evolution's going to go.
Judy is wondering, what are the rakes doing? This cryptid creature, the rake.
I'm not entirely certain which race she's calling rakes. Unless she's referring to drakes.
No. The rake is it's supposed to be like some sort of tulpa where it can have antlers. It looks like a human, like a white-skinned, orangish, red-eyed humanoid that can crawl on all fours.
Okay.
Or
she's talking about Terranthropes. Okay. And I mean, there's a staggering variety of those. The Terranthropes come right off, come all from the same planet, but they take on the form of animals or of species that sometimes are very similar to Earth, sometimes are a little twisted. But the way they do it is by genetic sampling, and then they just simply adapt to it.
All right, Patty is wondering if you could share another past life experience.
Well, one of the ones I had a lot of fun with was at the time that Robin, you've heard of Robin Hood and Robin Locksley and all of that period. At that point in time, I was a thief. Now, the thing was, I didn't steal from people because I wanted to steal from people. My whole catch was I'd hear somebody say, oh, I just got a brand new safe, a brand new lockbox, it can't be picked. So I would spend my time, I'd listen, I'd case the place out, and I'd get an idea of the person. And then once I was happy with it, I would break into their place, and I would break into their lockbox. Now, I would always leave the same message. You were wrong. The difference between it was if the person was a creep and was treating people poorly, I'd clean his lockbox out, keep enough for me to hang on to, to last for a couple of weeks. And then I would take the rest and distribute it amongst the people that, that really required it. If on the flip side of that, the person was a decent chap trying to help people, I'd empty his lockbox. I'd still leave that message. You were wrong. But all of his money would end up usually under a pillow or under a blanket on his bed so he could find it real easy. Right, but I wouldn't steal from them. I simply moved. For me, it was just literally an issue of the challenge of breaking into the box. I think the best one I pulled that year was getting arrested and this one I had verified by somebody else at the same time. I met the chap that was with me. But we broke into the castle. I ended up getting arrested, which is why I broke into how I broke in. I got myself arrested. Spent a couple of weeks hanging around on the wall. Not a fun time, by the way. Jails at that point were not resort hotels. So I hung around and I let myself out. Right. Got out of the shackles by literally dislocating every bone in my hand, so I just dropped out. But the guy that was with me, my partner that I'd run with for years, I went to leave and he goes, "You can't leave me." I said, "Why not?" He says, "Well, you try and leave without taking me with you. I'll scream." I said, "I don't like loose ends." So I got him down. I said, "Fine, I'll take you with me." And he says, "Don't kill anybody." I says, "Don't worry, I'm not going to kill anybody." I took off to clear the way, and I come back with a chest. And when we went to leave, of course, there's all the guards that I'd taken out. And he says, "I thought you weren't going to kill them." I said, "They're just sleeping for a long time." But when we got outside, I asked him to hold on to my short sword. And of course, when he was down there and I just stuck it through him and I looked at it and he goes, "You stabbed me." I says, "No kidding. I told you I don't like loose ends." So he's laying there bleeding to death. He says, "Are you going to leave me? You're just going to leave me here to die?" I says, "No, I'm going to wait until you bleed out, then I'm going to leave."
Oh, that's nice.
I told you I don't like loose ends. Fortunately, I'm not that way inclined this lifetime. The funny part there is I had another partner that I knew, and we sometimes worked together, but his specialty was absolutely not. It was different. It was still locks, but he specialized in chastity belts. So for some bizarre reason, nobody complained.
Okay. All right. Bigfoot Rob is asking, if you go forward in time and wait for society to catch up, do we age or remain the same while others have passed on?
You'll still be the same age when society catches up to you. So if you're 40 years old and you jump ahead, and let's say you jump ahead 40 years, the people that knew you, when they catch up, they're going to be in their 80s, and you're still going to be 40.
Okay.
The whole catch, like I said, is you can't come back.
Why not?
Because time travel doesn't work that way. It's a one-way trip.
If you come back, is it more the fear of death or not coming back to the proper timeline?
No, you just plain can't come back. Picture it as a lobster trap. You can go into the future, but you cannot get turned around and come back out of it. I know there's a lot of theory there that you can come back, but everything I've seen falls apart. Like every theory I've seen about it falls apart.
Okay, Nightmare wants to know, what are some of the galactic laws?
That's the easy part. There's only 3. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. Now, one of the ones that falls under number 2 that is extremely important to all of them is you must follow the laws of the land in which you are. Meaning, if there is a law on a given planet, you have to follow that law. Okay. Even if you don't like it, it doesn't matter. They don't make allowances. You're a visitor. That's okay. You're still subject to the same laws. There's a lot more laws where it comes to the consortium's outlay, but where it comes to the universal laws, that'd be the one. Well, more to the point, that'd be the three. And if you take a look at any laws that you're following, they will fit into those three. And I mean religious, scientific, social, support group like AA and NA, or the group that supports people with PTSD. All of those laws will fit into those three. You know, and like I've told people before, if you come across one that doesn't, absolutely get in touch with me. I have never found one that doesn't fit. But I am still looking for one.
Keith, any idea how many times a soul can be reincarnated?
The soul itself doesn't technically reincarnate. Okay. What the soul does is it drops the body and goes and gets a new vehicle. See, it takes a very special technique to tear a soul apart, so it has to. It's kind of like if you picture a soul like a great big jigsaw puzzle. As it evolves, it gets more and more of its pieces put together, but it takes a very special technique to pull a soul apart, to pull that puzzle apart, and scatter it to the winds again.
Carlito would like to know, Keith, can you talk about the humanoid shark people? Shark Man?
Those are actually, if you will, lower class merfolk. Okay, they are an offshoot or another line of the merfolk. The same people that become sirens. Those shark folk are simply another race, and they live under the sea. Okay, fortunately, they don't tend to abduct people. Eat people, yes. Abduct people, not so much. But they're not the ones that come to shallow land. They take people when people are like, back in World War II, I think, and you know this better than I would, Dave. There was a destroyer that was sunk, and it had something like 700 people dumped into the water, of which there were only less than 150 that got out of it. Everybody else was taken out by shark.
Yes.
And in amongst that, you would have found some of these merfolk.
All right,
They don't like being seen.
Let's move on here. Parasolo, new to our channel. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you believe that there is a discovered black pyramid up in the North Pole somewhere?
Yeah. The scientists know all about it. There's a matching one down in the South Pole that they haven't found yet, though. But yes, it is a communication beacon.
For what purpose?
And actually for communication, very long distance. It's a relay beacon for the other side of a series of wormholes. But it also helps channel the stabilizing energy through the core of the Earth, where we have what people call inner Earth or Middle Earth or any number of names.
Kim wants to know, do the Venusians...
There are other hidden pyramids as well around the planet that are buried at this point.
All right, let's get to one more question. 1 minute left. Kim wants to know, do Venusians live underground on Venus? What do they look like?
Venusians look almost human, to start with. It's not so much they live underground, but they do live in protected domes. Okay, I think you'd call it more underwater than underground. And we'll have to use the term water a little loosely, considering I think the Venusian atmosphere is ammonia. But they live in domed cities. But they live so far down on the lower end that mankind hasn't been able to locate them just yet.
Gotcha. All right, Keith, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. We got 1 hour to go here with R Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. We love it when the Woo Train rolls on through town. Keith is the conductor. Talking aliens and ET contact all night long. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, Keith, you want to get caught up in a few questions here?
Yeah, it might be an idea.
All right. Michael wants to know, do we as a country, as in the United States, shoot down UFOs?
Try, and sometimes successfully, yes. It's fascinating to do that because they shoot down and then go, are you guys friendly?
Eris wants to know, does cremation stop reincarnation?
Not even remotely. The cremation of the body has no bearing on what the soul does. And very few souls actually, when I say live through the experience, very few of them actually stay in the body long enough for the experience. Picture, if you will, you own a vehicle and the vehicle dies. It gets thrown into the crusher. It doesn't stop you from going out and finding a new car. It's basically the same concept, except for the fact that if you stay in the crusher during the experience, you're not going to find anything. You'll have to find a new body too.
Right. Latro, I'm curious, who is reincarnated into human hybrid aliens? Human alien hybrids, pardon me.
That depends on the individual that decides to come back. People literally choose if they're going to come back and go through that as this incarnation. For the spirit, this is, for the hybrid, that is something the person says, this is what I desire to deal with.
Jenny wants to know, does Nibiru have any effect on Earth?
Not to speak of. I mean, it does in as much as the people that are on it are coming to check the place out again, but Nibiru itself isn't going to have any functional impact on Earth. And the reason I know that is because Nibiru itself is not actually a planet.
You're breaking the hearts of many people there. Breaking the hearts of many people.
Probably. If you think of it this way, if Nibiru was a planet, was a rogue planet, traveling through the middle of the solar system would turn this system inside out.
True.
The only way it can do that is if it's got a way of modifying the gravitational pull of that size of a ship.
Right.
To stop from pulling the other planets offline.
All right, let's rock and roll here to the next one. Parasolo. Was there a lost human civilization that had technology like we have now?
40,000 years ago, they were way more advanced than that. But yes, there have been, that I'm aware of, at least four times the civilization has got to this level. A few where it got close. A few more where it got close. But this is definitively not the first time. Definitively from my standpoint. Can I prove it? Not a prayer.
All right, let's move on. Bears Eat Beets is asking, who will disclose first, aliens or government?
Well, I'd have to say the aliens. They've already shown themselves. I cannot picture as far as en masse goes, the government will eventually try to. But the reality is mankind is not ready for full disclosure in that kind of magnitude. It would totally decimate civilization. And I don't mean the aliens would come down and destroy it. But you got to realize, if the aliens were to all of a sudden show up on that kind of numbers, everybody's belief structure right back would be shattered.
Thin Lizzy,
and that is something the off-worlders don't want.
Thin Lizzy says, do you know how awesome you are, Keith? We love you.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
All right. Dirt Road is asking, what is the 12th planet, and will we see it in this lifetime?
Well, since NASA's already found it, there are already 12 that are operational. Okay, but we start with Vulcan, which is right inside the sun's photosphere. Carina, which is actually, it runs on a 30-degree angle. The outside arc hits partway between Mars and Jupiter. The inside arc, I can't remember if it hits just inside the arc of Mercury or just outside of it. Okay, and Planet X, I mean, there is another one out there, but in this lifetime, I would not bet on them being able to confirm it.
All right. We got 1 minute to go here, so I'll hold off on Thin Lizzie's question. Big thank you so far tonight to Cat Chaser, Carlito ×2, Simon, Jenny, Flash Forward, and Michael for the amazing super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show. And don't forget this weekend, Lynn Wallington with Spaced Out Weekend, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, after her show, the After Hours Show, with Big Willie, Gemma Jade, John Hudson, and Thin Lizzie Borden to keep your entertainment going all night long. Thank you to all the veterans who are tuned on in tonight. We love you. And don't forget, you can always get all of our swag at spacedoutradio.com. in our store. We'd appreciate it. You'd look good in our gear. Don't forget about San Francisco, March 25th to 27th, UFOCon 2022. Both Lynn and I are speaking there. And then the following month, our Vegas fan trip, April 22nd to 24th at the Golden Nugget in Vegas. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Madison. Madison is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with R Keith Andrews and the ET Connection, as Keith comes in near the beginning of each month to talk about all the woo we can possibly handle. Yes, it is always a great peak woo night from the conductor of the woo train. Keith, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and welcome to everybody that's joined us.
All right, Lizzie is wondering, Keith, can you pick up on other people's past lives?
The answer to that would be yes.
What's that like, seeing that?
I mean, can I? Yes, but the catch to that, will I do it to somebody on air? No, I found that to be a dangerous idea. Usually creates too much havoc for people. But will I answer questions like that offline, as in if somebody has a question on that end, am I willing to go into that with them? Certainly.
All right, Carl's K is asking, how many races make up the consortium?
At last guesstimation, about 2,500.
It's a lot of races.
Yeah, and they are not all human-looking. You know?
I bet. Catherine is wondering, which species has your favorite art, and can you describe it?
That's an excellent question. You know, I'm kind of partial, I suspect, to Zerzik's art because it happens to be transspatial and well, it's actually referred to as as transtemporal. Okay, basically it boils down to painting one picture over another, and between the two of them, you actually get to see a third picture altogether. Okay, because they work in multiple mediums at that point. Now, if you're in that kind of an odd mood, when you take a look at the tech, like they have some, shall we say, morbid, but it does have a certain appeal to it if you're a little off kilter. But some of your best artists really are the Venusians, especially when you're looking at the sonic forms they use. They end up using quite literally solid sound in order to make sculptures and paintings.
All right, let's move on here to another question. And this one comes from Phil, who is wondering, do animals have souls?
Absolutely. So do plants, by the way. Plants, animals, elements, elemental configurations, humans, other races, they all go to the same place when they pass away. So if you've got a favorite pet and it passes away, you can if you passed away close enough, you may well run into it on the other side.
Mark D is wondering, are alien abductions affected by weather? Yeah, whether they decide to or not. And that pretty much is about the only weather that'll do it. Sometimes some of the, if you will, rookies will pick an overcast or a stormy day because it's harder to see them. Right. So it's harder for observers to spot it happening. Brand new listener here, Slappy Hour, is asking, is the prism of time related to our third spectrum of consciousness?
The prism of time?
Prism, not prism.
Oh, prism. Okay, my apologies.
That's okay.
Humans would likely look at it that way, but it is actually separated. It's actually a whole, it's part of the construct that makes the third dimension operational.
Do you want to expand on that, or are you done?
Well, basically, time was set up to give corporeals a way of communicating, of referential communication. Same as, if you want to call it a prism. The prism of space is another construct to have third dimensional configurations actually interacting. It's a reference point.
Lantro, go ahead. Finish up.
That's one of the reasons why you can't travel through it. It was built to maintain structural stability.
All right, Lantro would like to know, what is worse, being eaten by aliens or abducted by aliens?
Well, having tried both, personally, I'm thinking that the being eaten is worse. Although, in all fairness, you usually end up being abducted before you get eaten. And yes, in answer to the question, I did not survive that. I had to go and get a new body.
All right. Dirt Row wants to know, was Atlantis a mobile city?
Yes. Atlantis didn't sink. Yes, there were remnants left behind, but it itself, there were local remnants left behind. But Atlantis itself actually took off. It was literally a city-sized spaceship. And yes, it did have all the spires and what have you, and boy, did that make a mess when it left. I remember the day that city left. I actually ran into another chap that was was in Atlantis when it left. Only he spent 10,000 years trying to quit blaming himself for blowing the place up. When we first met, we went through a lot of a discussion with that in mind. and got him straightened around, because he didn't actually blow it up. It was literally his work that managed to make sure that Atlantis itself didn't end up going extinct.
Parasolo wants to know, mermaids once existed but extinct now?
The way that reads there, Dave, he wants to know if they're extinct now. And the answer is no, they're not. They're still very much alive. And yes, along with you have your mermaids, and some mermaids are recognized by what humans call sirens, aka people that call the sailors to the wrecks. By the way, those are not the nice mermaids.
Fap wants to know, shark people, do they visit central British Columbia? No, they don't. And Keith, if so help me, if you say yes, they do, we're going to have some fighting words there.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of saying they do. I was thinking that there's only one way they could. They certainly don't come over land. So if you're asking, is there a land-based shark person around? Not that I've ever run into or ever heard of.
All right. Downshift wants to know, if you had to spend the rest of eternity as any cryptid or legend, what would it be, Keith?
Well, if I had to spend as one, it wouldn't be a cryptid. I wouldn't be stuck on this planet at all. And the only way I can see lasting eternity with it would be going way back before reality in this third dimension actually began. And eventually I'll get back to that point, and quite frankly, so will everybody else. Everybody can get back to that point of getting that kind of power. But it's going to take you some time to be able to do that.
All right, Millennium is wondering, what do the ETs think of the brand new James Webb satellite spying on them?
It's about as disconcerting as a raindrop. I mean, they find it fascinating. It's good technology for Terrans, but they're not worried about it. The neat part about that satellite is it would take one flick of a button to take that satellite out of contention and make it 100% useless. But they're no longer, the off-worlders are not concerned with whether humans see the fact that they're up there. They're just not about to come down and go, oh, by the way, here we are. Come and let's share everything. Because humans are not ready for what they've got. And yeah, there's a lot of humans that'll say, I can deal with it. I'm open-minded enough. I can cope with it. And, it's a nice thought. But on the whole, it really doesn't work that way. But they're certainly not looking at knocking the satellite out. The satellite technology humans have to have in order to be able to expand to their next step, as in going interstellar. Right now, they've got interplanetary down. Only the government doesn't want you to know it. But not to worry, in about 30 or 40 years, the government will come clean and say, yeah, we've been working with it for a while.
Okay, let's move on here, Keith, as we continue on. Fernando wants to know, are Coneheads a race of ET?
The answer to that is yes. And if I recall correctly, that would be the Xenon. I'm just going to double check to make sure I got the name right. Believe that's the Xenon that you're referring to. And yes, they are a very definitive other race. They're in the second book I've got here. Not that. Let me see here. Just scanning through to find out, to make sure I get the right end. Right, the back end here. One of those, darn. Oh, that's because it's spelled with an X, not a Z. I'm looking through my information here, and I'm looking at the wrong spelling for it. Where are we? Oh, yeah, now I can't find it. But yeah, the Xenon are, Xeron, sorry. That's the problem. Where the heck is it here? Right down. There we are. Nope, those aren't the Coneheads. So that had to be potentially the Aldebaran. Nope, those are humanoid. I gotta go back through, but no, the Coneheads are definitively another race. What it is an evolved brain. They are fully telepathic. They don't communicate verbally at all.
All right.
I'm just trying to find one.
Keith, let's bring that one up later.
Oh, there we are.
Okay.
I'm looking in the wrong book. Okay, the answer to your question, yeah, the Xenon are absolutely a different race. Okay, there's no question there. But they are full psionics, meaning they simply use telepathy for communication. Nice part about it is they're not actually aligned with anybody aside from the consortium itself that they're a member of.
Right. Nicola is wondering, which race put the Black Knight satellite in Earth's orbit?
That I honestly don't know. I'd be inclined to say it was probably a joint effort by the consortium itself, if they had anything to do with it, because I just don't have a definitive answer for you on that one.
All right, Fabster's wondering, can I choose not to be reincarnated and just go to heaven or be a ghost on Earth?
Absolutely. By the way, being a ghost on Earth is reincarnating. But that being said, can you make that choice? The answer is yes. But if other track records are any indication, you go to heaven, you'll be up there for a while, and then you'll eventually get bored. And thereby choose to come back down here. Because the whole thing with Earth, with existence on this planet, is to experience life on a very limited set of senses and to experience it in a family unit. Family being identified as two adults of any race, any gender, with as many children under the same roof as they choose to have. But yeah, that decision is absolutely one of the options.
All right, let's go to Fernando here. I heard the Predators are real, like from the movie.
Very much so. They are not identical on that end. Okay, but the show Predator was patterned after the Muldocs. And the Muldocs are proficient hunters. They're also not exactly the most sociable. But they are a very real race. Quite frankly, the Muldocs have been on this planet longer than mankind has.
All right.
But do understand they do not have an entire civilization here.
We got just over 5 minutes, Keith, before we got to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, R Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. Continuing here, Bears Eat Beets is asking what alien species are malevolent.
Well, humans would consider Teklex are definitively malevolent. Your Muldocs aren't exactly the most sociable. Tormenon aren't exactly malevolent, but they are not nice people. They will do whatever they can for whatever price they can get. Okay. If you take a look at the Talon, are one race that I would certainly consider malevolent. They're an ant-like race. Okay. I I wouldn't. The Nordic are not. The Nords themselves aren't malevolent. They're just opportunistic, and had to be reined in. Oh, what was that one race I was looking at here? Is that it there? Humanoid? Nope. Looking for one race. There's one race. There is literally a robotic race that is absolutely malevolent and is no fun to play around with. This is what I get for having way too many races I deal with, trying to keep track of them. The not the Zerziks rather, but the Kleeklok are a nasty race. And I wouldn't exactly call the Archons a malevolent race, but they are certainly a race that doesn't pay attention to what humans are looking for. They utilize humans. Or more to the point, they utilize the human genome.
All right.
But there are malevolent races or malevolent individuals in every race.
Right.
The Teklak are in the middle of a civil war because some of them did not agree with what their leaders were saying. We're going after. Net result, they ended up with a civil war.
All right, Keith, let's move on here. Sensational Sherry is asking, are you able to pick up on those who have passed and see if there was pain or sadness or awareness when they passed?
Yep. That one is one of the things I learned the first day I was born. And I've had some remarkable success with it with people, but yeah, that's usually a pretty easy thing to take a look at. And no, not everybody that passes goes through horrendous pain, and not everybody goes through a real peaceful turnover. But do I feel it? Yeah, without a doubt. At least without a doubt on my end.
Sandra is wondering, can ETs influence you mentally?
They've tried. As far as I've found, once in a while one will get through, and I have gone through a full body channel on it, in a couple of occasions. But on the whole, no. I figured out how to deal with that a long time ago. And no, that does not make me better than anybody. That just is. I'm built a little differently than some. Well, than most.
All right, Keith, we've got a couple minutes left. Parasolo is wondering, do you believe that some people who are still missing were abducted and never brought back?
Yes. Some of them are still alive and were never brought back. There are also cases where people stepped into a time portal, jumped ahead, and disappear, and you never catch up to them. Because if a human jumps ahead 150 years, humans don't live that long anymore.
Right. Right. All right.
There are cases where people have disappeared out of North America and shown up in Europe with no passport, with no ID at all, and no recollection of where they came from. Net result, they end up building a new life altogether. Although it's a bit of a challenge getting to that part of it.
1 minute left. Let's try and get another one in. Steve is wondering, how much livable space is under the moon or Mars?
Under Mars, a fair chunk. They've got an entire civilization down there. Under the moon, I have no idea. They haven't done much with it. They punched holes in it to put some of the buildings in. Some of the manufacturing buildings for repair and what have you. But the best way I can tell you is if you work out the volume of the moon. Okay, and I'm not the one to do that. But if you can work out the volume of the moon, that'll give you an idea. Just make sure you knock out the first mile above the first mile of the crust before you start calculating volume.
Right. Right. Keith, we're going to hold it right there as we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We have R Keith Andrews of the ET Connection for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. We love him around here. The woo is high. We are now into fourth gear, heading into gears 5 and 6, as we take it down the tracks with the ET connection. Keith comes in near the beginning of each month to answer all of your questions about aliens, UFOs, abductions, ET contact, monsters, legends, folklore. We'll be back with more R Keith Andrews right after this. Keith, I'm just going to take a bathroom break. We're going to start with this question when we come back from Mark. In the chat room, I'm still about 14 minutes behind, so just stay tuned. I'll try and get to your questions in the next half hour. I'll be right back, Keith.
Okay, I'm going to join. I'm going to do the same. Okay. Now, I noticed a question early on that we did miss, and I doubt we're going to get back to it, but somebody way back asked what was in this brown cup. This is my coffee cup. That's why it always sits around with me. 90% of the time it's coffee. Once in a while I'll put something else in it, but never with coffee. The other thing to realize regarding the issue of humanoid races is that the human configuration is actually a very rare configuration. It's just the one that most people can relate to. But humans themselves, it's actually for most of them, it's a very ineffective configuration. You know, if you take a look at the Korlok are essentially an amoeba, okay, which gives them a whole lot more mobility. And for those of you that haven't heard me talk about them before, the Korlok, the show A Space Odyssey 2001, okay, that ship is a Korlok ship, and you'll never find somebody, a human, on board a Korlok ship, because they are literally designed for the Korloks to move in, and humans just don't go through that. Ouch. But no, I just figured I'd touch base on that. By the way, for those of you that have taken a look at it, the book that I've got, the Races of the Worlds, that some of you have ordered, I do have a second printing of it coming out later this year. I'm roughly speaking about 2/3 of the way of getting the pictures done for it. And for those of you that already have it, I just need you to make sure that you get your address to me, and I will be sending a free one to you when the second printing comes out. I've already had a couple of people remind me that they ordered it, because unfortunately, my records of who got what are not exactly complete. You know, and I know I'm going to end up, I'm hoping to get to do this later, but if you look up my YouTube channel, Inner Voice Enterprises, you'll find a whole list of ways to listed under every one of my videos as to how you can get a hold of me and what books I've got in print.
Sorry, Keith.
Hey, good morning.
We got 1 minute.
Okay.
I want to say a big thank you to Cat Chaser, Carlito, Simon, Jenny, Flash Forward, Carlito again, Michael, and Chris for the awesome super chats tonight. Thank you for the love and support. It's a great way to support what we do. And, of course, this weekend, Lynn Wallington with the Spaced Out Weekend, Saturday and Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And right after that, the After Hours show with Big Willie, Gemma Jade, John Hudson, and Thin Lizzie Borden. Make sure you catch it. 5 hours of programming each Saturday and Sunday night for you. Here we go, everyone. We got about 5 seconds left, so we're just going to hang out, grab a drink, and start the next half hour. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on for the next half hour with R Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. He's here till the top of the hour talking about all things weird, strange, alien, and extraterrestrial. And Keith, we're going to start off with Mark's question here. If you had a chance to go and live on another planet, would you go?
Oh yeah, I've been to a number of them to visit. Would I move there to live there? I'm quite comfortable here, and besides that, they've got their own hiccups. I mean, Zeta Reticuli is a phenomenal planet to go and visit. But don't go without a guide, because it's not the animals you have to worry about too much. It's the plants that'll eat you.
All right. Marty wants to know, have you ever traveled through a black hole, wormhole? If so, what was it like?
Black hole was many, many, many lifetimes ago. But have I traveled through wormholes? Absolutely. Both interplanetary and terrestrial.
Gloria would like to know, outside of people, what creatures are you personally afraid of?
Well, at Talons, I have a major problem. Other than that, I used to be terrified of horses. Cured that one. I still don't like, I'm not afraid of them, but I'm certainly still edgy around cattle.
Why, are you afraid you're going to be mutilated with them, or what?
Try that again?
Are you afraid you're going to be mutilated with them, or what?
No, I grew up afraid of cattle. That's because when I was in kindergarten, our whole class was chased down by a rampaging bull.
Gotcha.
We got out of the fence before it did, but it still left a mark.
All right, let's move on here, my friend. Jules is wondering, have you had to deal with any health effects from contact you have had?
I honestly don't know. And the reason I say that is because I am a firm believer that what the Srazazin did to put my body back together is why my temperature gauge is shot to pieces and my immune system is something bizarre. They didn't know. When they put me back together, they did not know really how humans were supposed to operate.
Carl would like to know, what is the preferred interstellar propulsion among most interstellar species? Space warping propulsion, or using or creating wormholes?
The OTE drive, which is neither of the above. It's literally a drive that operates off the material in space. By simply pulling it through the system and accelerating, there is no limit to the speed it can go. Okay, but you do have, it's literally called the oscillator densification of the tri-transformational equipolarity. But you have to take a look at the fractal inversion in order to slow the system down. Can I explain it? The answer is yes, but it does take a couple hours. You know.
All right.
And I was with somebody with the masters in both astrophysics and rocketry.
Parasola wants to know, does any government experiment on human souls in any way, such as having two humans swapping souls?
They have tried, but the modern human technology won't permit it to work very well. And the ones that can, most people that can operate with the soul are evolved to the point they won't. However, are governments known to try and play with it? Certainly.
Malou would like to know, what are the mushroom ET race called again?
That is a spare knocked in. They're a cute little race. They're not very big, and they're certainly not all that aggressive, but...
All right, let's go to Mark. Are shadow people alien, ghosts, or remote viewers?
Well, I guess you could say they're a combination. Some people that are... Now, we're not talking actually remote viewers, they won't be. However, some will come across as because of astral travel. But the actual shadow people are a race unto themselves. Okay, ghosts are another entity altogether. Although I suspect some people would mistake some ghosts as shadow people or vice versa.
Steve would like to know, are incubus and succubus demons or aliens?
The answer would be yes, both. They just happen to be different genders of the same species. See, demons include a staggering number of races, like a staggering number of species. It's a catch-all for many of them, and the succubus and the incubus are just two of them.
All right, let's move on. Catherine would like to know, what about the race, and what do you know about the Contactee?
I may know them by a different name, and I don't know the term itself. Okay, I don't know the name Contactee itself. But if she wants to drop me a description of what she's taught of the race she knows of that, then I'll be more than happy to look into it and fill him or her into it, as far as what I know about them.
All right, continuing on here, Fapster wants to know, can some species naturally shoot lasers out of their eye to kill? Like, no weapons?
In a manner of speaking, yes. The Alphid race can do that. Although they don't usually use it out of their eyes. They usually use it straight out of their hands. There's another race that, I couldn't find the name I was looking for, but the ones that people identify as coneheads are also capable of doing it, except they don't use their eyes. They use a focus beam from their third eye. Fortunately, they're not actually that interested in killing people.
Well, that's good. That is good. All right, let's continue on here with R Keith Andrews and the ET connection. Malou would like to know, can we compare humans to ETs, meaning that we simply don't like some people at first sight, like they are another race? Could it be that our frequency impacts whom we like and dislike?
Very well done. The answer to that is yes. In a nutshell, people feel different. People don't realize how much people rely on their instincts to actually determine what is a safe person and who is not. But they don't, that instinct does not relegate itself only to the human genome. it also encompasses every other race available.
Okay.
But, there's no question she hit the nail on the head on that one.
All right, let's move on then. Grant would like to know, with over 600 moons in our solar system, how many are occupied?
I have no way of giving you an answer to that one. Well, I guess technically I do. I could go and ask, but, it's not something I've ever looked into.
Name a few that are.
Well, I know Io is. Io is, what the heck is it called? I think it's called Erathes, which is another moon, if I recall correctly. It's either around Jupiter or around Saturn. I'm honestly not sure which. But then I'm not an astronomer, in all fairness. I know that our moon is occupied.
Well, I mean, some people will say maybe. So we'll check that on out.
And I absolutely, from my standpoint, have a happy. If you can get there, go and take a look. It's a rush watching the Earth rise from the other side of the moon.
All right.
If you think a sunrise is good, you should take a look at that one.
Let's move on, Keith. Uncle Dale and his power stash down in Texas are asking, among the aliens who raise their own kids, do they have Saturday morning cartoons? I love that question.
Not the way he's inferring, but yes, they do have, children still have to play. With every other race, you still have the children needing to understand how to play. A lot of the playing, especially when you look at the reptilian genre in general, they learn how to play by learning how to fight. And this is one of the things. Humans, when they fight, there may be a couple of bruises. When many of the reptilian races learn to fight as children, you're talking about burying the neighbor's kid, or in this case, actually eating him. But yeah, they do have the ones that are in orbit. More often than not, they simply tune into Earth's outlook, to the goings on down here. Martokians are famous for this one. They will study Earth society to see where theirs went, how theirs gone, to try and figure out where the mistakes were made in their own history. Because ultimately they had a very similar one to what mankind has. It's just it went the other direction. It collapsed.
Okay. All right, let us move on here, my friend, as we continue on with R Keith Andrews. Let's get to Jenny. Keith, where do planes and ships go that disappear in the triangles?
That is literally an active wormhole, which is why they sometimes end up coming back, but there is a secondary wormhole there that on occasion will drop them back here. But this end is unstable. This end of the secondary wormhole, that is. The wormhole, like the one in the Bermuda Triangle, there's another triangle up in the Northwest Territories that also yanks people out of existence on this plane. Now, I do believe there's actually two in the Bermuda Triangle itself. One is a physical wormhole. The other one is a temporal, which is why you end up coming across some vehicles here. Some things that have gone missing have all of a sudden shown up.
All right. Let us continue. Malou would like to know, can you make a coloring book of the off-world ETs that we can paint and notes about the species on the back? I would totally buy it.
I never honestly thought about that, but I noticed that question going through, and the best I can tell you, is I will get it done. I've got to talk to my artist and get the extra one done. But I've got to get this book done first. Well, obviously I need the races done to start with. And then I will get him working on that. And that way the answer to your question is yes. But it's going to take me a little bit to put it together.
All right, Nicola would like to know, do you have a list of the systems that the aliens come from, and is it possible to get a copy?
A list of the systems?
Solar systems.
Yeah. I know very few of where they come from. Okay, so what few I can tell you, can I put it together? Yes. Have I got a list of them at this point? No. Of course, one of the problems there is I'm not an astronomer, and lacking that knowledge is really fun trying to pin down where they are. Besides that, most of them don't come from this solar system at all.
All right. Let's see where else we are here. Where are they coming from then, Keith?
Well, I know for instance, the Strazazians, in simplest terms, are 2 wormholes away, which puts them way the heck and gone on the other side of the Milky Way.
My goodness.
Right, like literally they use a wormhole shuttle system, if you will, to jump. And this is why it does not take millennia for them to get from one side of the galaxy to the other.
Arlene would like to know, does communicating with opposing races ever put you in danger?
Thus far, no. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not usually. I have ended up with physical marks. I remember one morning when I was still married, I woke up and I'd had a particularly bad run-in with a couple of races that were just not getting along at all. Quite frankly, it was Strazazian and Teklek. But when I woke up, my pillow was coated in blood. I had a gash running from the center of my forehead all the way to the temple, one from the base of the nose all the way to the ear, and one from the center of the chin all the way to the jugular. My wife at the time just looked at me and goes, I don't even want to know what you were fighting last night. So can it be dicey? Yeah. But have they ever killed me? Not that I can recall.
Well, let's see here. Let's move on. So we continue on here. Here we go to Marty. Was the moon artificially created? If so, by whom?
Artificially, only technically. Okay, it wasn't. It was pulled together. It was constructed at the same time that Earth was constructed. Okay, but the answer to your question would be the Zerziks. They were the first race to come. Well, no, my apologies. The Zerziks were the first race to come through, but the spirits that ended up inhabiting the Elfid body were the ones that originally built Earth and the moon. And the moon was built as a stabilizer, quite literally as a governing agent for tidal maneuvering and for atmospheric evolution. It was quite deliberately set there. But is it a natural construct? Yes. As in, it uses natural, there's no artificial, there's no mechanical thing inside it. Well, that's not correct, but it was not built in a mechanical fashion. It was built starting from a subquantum level.
All right, my friend, let us move on here. Boss Monster, I wonder if there's an alien version of R Keith Andrews. And
Best I can tell you is probably, but,
would he have your sideburns? Would he have your sideburns?
That is a debatable point. If he's a replica, the answer would be obviously yes. And probably just as attached to them. Probably.
Barry Eats Beats wants to know, Keith, what civilizations are under the ice of Antarctica?
Well, it depends on how far under you go, but most of what you call mythological races are down there, as well as some of the races that people believe are extinct. There's a lot of room down there. And it sort of depends on how deep you go. But the dwarfid race is all over the place underneath Earth. Like what people have read about as mythological dwarves are very real. And just as temperamental as they're made out to be. So, you have your elfid race, your dwarven race. Many of the Maldocks have moved underground. Some of the Sparenoctin that have been left behind are underground. Same as the Arboreans, the Gron. The list does continue. You'll even see the occasional Arawa there.
All right, let's move on here, Keith. Parasolo wants to know, is there really a Loch Ness Monster?
The answer to that question, from my standpoint, is yes. You're looking at a long-necked plesiosaur. A.k.a. a carryover from the dinosaurs.
Blue Crossroads would like to know, any contact with any of the extraterrestrials from the Protectorate? Have you ever heard of the Protectorate? It's
a small group that runs out of, it runs in tandem, if you will. It's an offshoot of the consortium. But the answer to the consortium, which is why you don't run into a whole lot of problems. It's kind of like if you will, a subgroup of human politics. Only they're not human.
So what's the difference between them and the consortium?
They are most of them are members of the consortium, but the consortium is not members of the Protectorate.
Interesting.
The Protectorate, along the same lines as Radio Command. Radio Command is a group of people from various different races inside the consortium that specialize in communication. The Protectorate specializes in surgical strikes to solve problems for the consortium. AKA, if there's a race that's causing problems, and they're renegade members, if you will, the members of the Protectorate are sent in to deal with it.
2 minutes left.
That only happens if we... Go ahead.
2 minutes left. Malou would like to know, are ETs inspired by humans in any way?
Yes. Inspired by, and also they actually in a lot of ways fear them. But humans' curiosity streak and their ability to manipulate zero-point energy, what humans call zero-point energy, does really get the off-worlders' attention.
Right. Magnus wants to know, is there a cat alien race?
Yep, 2 of them that I'm aware of. One is one of the Theranthrope. The other is Laborian.
Grandpa Holland in Australia. What do the Martians think of our little rovers?
They're clunky and a little ill-conceived.
All right, one final question here from Steph in Florida. Are the reptilians dangerous? Are they here?
Number one, there are multiple reptilian races. Can they be dangerous in a fight? Certainly. Okay, but most of them you actually have to work to provoke. And are they here? Absolutely. Sirzazians are actually allies of humans and are protecting humans from Teklex, which are another reptilian race. The Chitawari are a reptilian race that actually evolved on Earth. I think I just screwed myself up. The Chitawari are a reptilian race that is actually on Earth itself, that actually evolved here.
Wonderful. Keith, I want to say a big thank you for you coming on Spaced Out Radio again tonight, my friend. It is always a pleasure to have you here for the ET Connection, and we'll talk to you next month.
Absolutely, and thanks so much again for having me.
All right, R Keith Andrews, the ET Connection. When we return, we're going to go into the swamp with another spooky story from Swamp Dweller, and we got the fedora-wearing John Hudson coming up next on Spaced Out Radio. Great job, buddy. Great job again tonight.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're awesome. Love you, man.
Don't work too hard tonight, eh?
I won't. Hey, for everybody out there, do me a favor if you haven't already. Sign up for Canada's Great Unknown. This is our storytelling channel of everything weird and strange going on in Canada. We just launched it on Monday, and we'd love for you to subscribe, if you don't mind, and listen to some of our crazy stories that we've been able to accumulate so far. So during the break, a great time to head on over to Canada's Great Unknown and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We got a new set of stories today that are out about UFO sightings, and I would love it if you guys head on there and hit subscribe. Listen after the show, obviously, not during, and tell me what you think. Put your messages down below. I'd really appreciate it. So head on over to Canada's Great Unknown. That's the channel that Merle and I have just started, and we'd love your support, just like you guys support Spaced Out Radio. So head on over there, quickly hit that subscribe, then quickly come back, because we got hour 3 next. I'm going to let you go here, Keith.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again there, Dave.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Absolutely. You take care.
Take care. Love him. Love me some R. Keith. Thank you, Cosmic Fleur. New channel is great. I appreciate that. Thank you. God, I love it when Keith is here. It's so much fun. Thanks, Boz Monster. Appreciate you. Right. Don't forget, if you're in the San Francisco area or want to be next month, UFO Con 2022, both Lynn Wallington and myself will be speaking at UFO Con 2022, and we'd love to meet you there. So go to UFOCon2022.com and check it on out. Myself and Lynn, again, will be appearing in Las Vegas on April 22nd and 24th, where we're having the SOR fan party at the Golden Nugget. We're even going to put in a live show that you can join up for if you wish. And we're going to have some really cool people there hanging out with us as well. People you recognize on this show. Thinking Jim Goodall. I'm thinking the guys from UFO Garage, Ben and Joe, Geraldine Orozco, and maybe George Knapp. We're going to hopefully find out with him, and many, many more. We got Bigfoot Michigan Rob is coming. Cotter Bouchard, just on a couple of weeks ago. He booked his tickets today. Nate Foot from Wibbs. Him and Hallmark Corey are going to be there. And, that is really cool. We're going to have some more as well. I think Melinda Leslie is going to come up for that. So we're going to have some good friends from the show hanging on out with us. And we'd like it if you guys all came on down. So it's on our website. And everything is free except the live show. Except the live show. It's going to be $25. That's it. That's it. It's Vegas. It's Vegas. And the first 50 people who say, yes, I am going, are going to get a swag bag from us. I think we're at about 28, 29 people, 30 people, somewhere around there right now. And just message us at info@spacedoutradio.com and let us know. There you go. We want to see you there. Either or, really. Vegas would be fun, though. It will be. I promise you. I promise you. That's why we're not going to the MGM Grand parking lot, Jeremy. Staying on the old strip. Fremont. All right, we're almost there. Oh, shoot. Crap, I forgot to do this. Quickly. Close. That's good. We're good there. All right. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway tonight. My name is Dave Scotch. Dave Scotch? I don't even drink Dave Scotch or Dave Scotch. What the heck? That's a tongue twister. My name is Dave Scott. I'm the guy who apparently hosts this radio show. Just learning how to talk, apparently, but thank you for tuning us in. And we say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam is set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Madison is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time for us to return to the swamp, where Mr. Swamp Dweller comes on in to tell us another spooky story.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. This story happened to multiple family members of mine several years ago. We had been going to a huge water park in Wisconsin when we all decided to tell scary stories in the car. I'm not sure why, but we decided whoever could scare our dad won. Once we had all told the most horrifying stories we could think of, our dad just laughed at us. At this point, it was dark and snowy out. Our father started telling us about a hunting trip he had gone on 20 years prior. With him was our grandfather, and some family friends. They rode in one car, like an old-school Chevy Blazer. My father had turned off the music in the car and had told us that there was an area a little north of where we lived that they went hunting all the time. The area was heavily forested, and lights and houses were few and far between. During the day while he had been hunting, my father had been sitting in a tree. He would recall that a wolf-type monster with a hunched back would peek around trees and stare at him. After watching the creature for some time, he called our grandfather. The creature had scurried away quickly as my grandfather made his way to my father's tree. Once my father had explained what he had just seen, our grandfather looked around and tried to make our father feel better. He would say things to try to calm him down, but would feel uneasy until they left. My father recalls that the car was new at the time, and it would not start. No one thought much of it, except my father. After working on it for about an hour, all the men finally filled the car and left the property as the sun had fallen. After driving for about a half hour from the property, they would all recall that the heavy fog fell on the road, making it extremely difficult to see anything within a 10-foot radius of the car. As they began to turn on a road and approach a few sets of train tracks on this ratchet old road that hadn't been paved, the car would stop out of the blue, just moments from the tracks. Just out of nowhere it died. My grandfather, who had been in the military, says that he didn't even feel comfortable going out without his hunting rifle to fix the car. So after getting his rifle and flashlight, he got out of the car to find that nothing was wrong. He couldn't find anything that was visibly wrong with the car at all. He had gotten back in and started it up when all in the vehicle heard a scream to the left of them. My father says that he has not ever heard a sound like that before, and even my grandfather had the chills. They drove away, and as they appeared over the railroad, their car stopped again. But this time it was being pulled back and lifted slightly in the rear, something that a normal person could not have done. As the car would still not move, and the fog got heavier, a loud thud came from the rear mirror. A pair of bloody handprints as big as the back window appeared. Finally, the car was released and they hauled ass out of there, going down the road as the fog rose from the street. The only person who ever talks about this to this day is my father. He's hard to get answers out of. Nothing else like this has ever happened again to my knowledge, but they were all too scared to talk about it, for different varying reasons, and I'm pretty sure my dad has never gone hunting since then. I'm so relieved I finally have somewhere to vent this. This has been a stain on my psyche since last month. For a bit of context, I am a male who lives in Ontario. My mother and father at the time would frequently force me into social gatherings to help me with my interaction skills, and made me go to a party, where I met a boy, who, for his family's privacy, I'll call Kurt. I had amassed a friendship with him over time, and we grew closer and closer. I hate the activity, but I wanted to support my only friend, so we went hunting every Thursday night, which is irrelevant, but important to know how close we were. One night, he was invited to his friend's graduation party down near a river. I and Kurt used to hunt at this place all the time, and were very familiar with it. I obliged, starting to get the hang of being around people. Note that I arrived in an Uber, and when I was dropped off, I had no way out of this place. The party was very intense for me, so I just kind of sat off on the side with Kurt, who was intense, but his dad was a cop, and he didn't want drugs on him. Once the party was over, I hopped in Kurt's pickup truck. In case you're wondering why I didn't ride with him to the party, it's because his girlfriend rode too, but not from, and I didn't want to impose on whatever made them 30 minutes late. As we drove down the dark country road, we saw an RCMP patrol car flipped over on the side of the road. Kurt slowed down. I turned our Green Day song down. This really made me uneasy because this was a place that we had hunted before and had always felt like we were being watched from the treetops, even though we never found or saw anything there. I told Kurt, "Don't be an idiot, dude." He didn't listen and opened the door to the car. I slammed my hand down on the dashboard and swore in my head. My eyes were closed as I did, and when I opened them, Kurt was running back to the car, covered in warm red blood. He hopped in and gassed it. I screamed and asked him over and over what he saw. The trooper's body was mangled and twisted up inside the car, and fell down when I opened the door. It splashed me. Then I swear, on my life, that I saw eyes peering from the damn tree line. The gore and remains of Kurt made my soft stomach self-hurl, so I rolled down the window and vomited it out. Then I heard something that made me get chills down my neck and hips. A loud, screaming sound, like a gargled howl spread over the trees, birds flying away in the fog. I pulled my head back in and rolled the window up. The moment Kurt dropped me off at my flat, I noticed something. If the blood on Kurt was still warm and dark red, and the engine on the car was still running, that must have meant that it happened almost minutes before we stumbled across it. I called my girlfriend and my parents to tell them what happened. 2 days before writing this, Kurt took his own life. In his honor, I want to tell this story to the world. People must know. I am now 24 years old, and the only thing that has changed since last month is Kurt's gun sleeps loaded next to my bed, and I'm not sure I'll ever go hunting in that area ever again. I know this story wasn't specifically about hunting, but hopefully you can use it.
All right, a big thank you to Mr. Swamp Dweller for hanging on out with us and another couple of creepy stories that we got. But it's time, once again, for the fedora-wearing John Hudson and the unbiased UFO Report. Yes, the fedora-wearing John Hudson comes on in to give us all the details of everything that is happening in the land of UFOs. Mr. John, it is always a pleasure to have you here on Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, buddy?
Good evening, sir. Good evening. I'm doing good. Good to be here.
Yes, it's always good to have you here, as well as we looked for another edition of What You Got. What's going on in the UFO world tonight, man?
Yeah, I do apologize, Dave, for not getting you my notes in time. It's because I was trying to transcribe something that I wanted to be able to read accurately on the show, and I was having some trouble transcribing it, so I do apologize. But hey, for once you get to be surprised, so there you go. So once again, thank you everyone for hanging out. We do appreciate it. So the first thing, which one is an interesting data point, but two, it's also just kind of a fun thing that kind of happened, I would argue, is that I don't know how many of you have read the latest Skinwalker book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, which I just finished myself, like quite literally last night. I highly recommend it. It's very good. In this book, there was a character named Axelrod. And this is a character that's a pseudonym for another character whose name had to be removed at the request of the Pentagon. Now, if you know your kind of UFO literature history, and you go back to the book Penetration by Ego Swan, there is also a character named Axelrod who plays a somewhat similar, rather spooky role in that novel, in that book as well. And so during a interview that Com Kelleher did with Jeffrey Mishlove on Thinking Out Loud, which is an outstanding interview if you're a fan of Com Kelleher, because essentially, Jeffrey Mishlove is a very different style interviewer. And so even if you've seen several interviews of him, the Jeffrey Mishlove interview of him is definitely a different one. And it's also part 2 of like a 6-part series that's well worth seeing. But my point is that Com Kelleher comes out and says, no, actually, the two Axelrods are two completely different people. However, when we had to come up with a pseudonym for a character in our book, several of us mentioned the name Axelrod as an homage to the book Penetration. So there's a directly intentional, correlation between the two of them, but it's not by any means that they are the same person. And I guess there were some growing rumors in the community that they might be the same person. And so this was the whole reason why it came up in the interview.
Have we figured out who Axelrod really is?
Oh, no. I mean, well, which one? The original one or the new one?
Either of them. I mean, this name just keeps... even in private chats I'm in, this name just keeps on picking up and gaining some steam.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say this, John, and I don't mean anything bad about it, but it almost reminds me of the days of Valiant Thor, where...
Oh, yeah, or Slender Man, or one of these other things where it just becomes this, no, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I'm very worried it's becoming this catch-all for several things. But I mean, let's face it, the fact that, whether, and look, writers take some literary license on purpose for the benefit of the reader. It's possible that Axelrod was more than one character. That happens quite often, right? It's possible that in either one of those books, that Axelrod was a combination of more than one character. But whether he was a combination of more than one character or a combination of one character, Axelrod in both books was a real person that had a real serious role to play. And so if anyone ever can find out who they are, it's important information to discover.
Very cool. Very cool. Is it important to find out this person's identity?
Is it important from the point of view of does anyone outside of our community care? Absolutely not. Could it move disclosure at all forward? Yeah, actually, in a weird way, it could. In that, essentially, if the knowledge of who he was or she was broke some chain that someone has been following for a long time, that could certainly lend to some disclosure, some information. But I think for the most part, this is a geek thing. This is a fun thing for those of us that are actual, real, geeks about this knowledge and so forth. And it's just kind of like a fun. I think it's more of a fun thing at this point. But time will tell, because if we do find out who it is, it might end up being more important than I think.
All right, let us move on. What's our next topic tonight?
Okay, so the next one is kind of a weird sidestep topic, because what this is about is from a snippet of an interview that was done today where Christopher Mellon and Luis Elizondo were interviewed on I can't remember the name. It like Looks to the Skies or something like that. But anyway, it was a really good interview, and in it, so let me back up. So the reason for the interview is that Christopher Mellon wrote an article that he had published in the debrief, where he kind of vents a bit about some of his dislike of how things are going, and so the original catalyst for the interview was that article, because the article basically came out yesterday, and basically this interview happened yesterday at the same time, and it was actually at Christopher Mellon's request that Luis Elizondo join him in the interview, which I thought was an interesting side note. But I don't want to talk about that article yet, because I think it's something that we should probably dive into in more detail. What I do want to touch on is some of the very, very interesting data points that came out during what Christopher Mellon was talking about. And what they were able to get him to talk about is these sensor systems that are available on Earth for detecting things. So the first one is we have and I'm trying to quote him directly, but I did have to do some dictation, so I may be off a bit. I do apologize if I am. But we have a system called a space fence. The space fence has two locations, one in the northern hemisphere and one in the southern hemisphere. And the way the system operates is that there are beams that are shot up. And as the Earth rotates and as things rotate the Earth, if anything crosses any one of those beams, that device gets cataloged in extremely high resolution with extreme detail using one of the more powerful systems we've ever built. This was according to Christopher Mellon. And this system is unique to the United States. It is always running, and that there is every reason to believe that system has been cataloging activity for a long, long, long time. The second one, which is also very interesting, is that we have a solid state system that is also unique to the United States. that sits on two locations. Well, that's not really true. It actually sits in many locations all around the outside border. And this solid state system is a very, very strong system that essentially, to put kind of a loose characteristic to it, this system could detect a baseball from about 20,000 miles away. So basically, we have one system that looks at everything outside of the atmosphere all around the world all the time. And then we have a second system that looks across the Earth 20,000 miles in each direction. It's only 11,000 something miles around half side. So 20,000 miles each, you get overlap. And basically what it means is that these systems can see a baseball size thing appearing in the atmosphere anywhere on Earth.
Wow. That's heavy, man.
Yeah. And keep in mind that if Christopher Mellon can talk about these systems, and if I can know as much about these systems as I do, it means that those systems are probably third generation. So they're probably 3 generations old. There was probably an intermediate generation that came and left. And then there is a third generation that has come to be and that is currently in practice.
Where does this all go?
So you're talking about...
Where does this all go?
Well, what it means is where it really kind of leads is where I really want to kind of get into some of the discussion, is that it starts getting into a very interesting discussion about, where does the blame, but where does some of the responsibility lie in the gating of information? Who, has anyone really been holding these crown jewels of data? And I think the truth of the matter is I think a lot of us have kind of doubted it a bit, doubted whether there really was this silver bullet of a data cache that, that exists somewhere. I heard Bruce Seibel give on one of his interviews today talk about someone who claims that they went into Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and went into a room and saw a photograph of the Roswell crash, right? Well, that's like a really nice thing to have, but once again, it becomes this anecdotal story, right? And so basically where the conversation evolves into in the interview is that essentially, how do we find out where this data is, and how do we properly prod and tease it out of the institutions that are holding that data? And it gets into a very interesting discussion about the things that I think we've talked about before. Like, for example, there's a classic story that of J. Allen Hynek who basically goes to NORAD to find out, if they've been seeing UFOs, many years ago, and that they explained to him, no, we don't see anything like that. And then in some other conversation, he finds out that they have these things called uncorrelated targets, and UCTs. UCTs, actually, if you look at the definition of a UCT, it actually looks a hell of a lot like a UFO. And when asked, oh yeah, we have tons of UTCs. They're happening all the time. You want to see the data? Right? And that's a very classic story, right? And so that falls into this, because now it becomes a question of, as we start going after this data, how much teeth is this new division really going to have? And how many games are other people going to be able to play with them, as far as dancing around language, dancing around all this stuff, and being able to get away from and get out of, offering up all that data?
Very true. We got 40 seconds left. Yeah.
Go
When
ahead.
When Chris Mellon speaks, we do need to listen. And,
oh, yes.
And I think when we come back, what we should do, John, is for our radio listeners who may not understand who Chris Mellon is, we should give a brief description of what he is like when we come back here on Spaced Out Radio and why he is so important to the UFO cause. We have the unbiased UFO report with the fedora-wearing John Hudson tonight on Spaced Out Radio, talking all things UFO, because that's what we like to do around here. You can also catch the fedora-wearing John Hudson on the After Hours show after Lynn Wallington's Spaced Out Weekend, Saturday and Sunday on our YouTube channel. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, Fedora.
Man, too many bloody interviews today. It was crazy. I think I still have a couple hours to go through too.
Where were you? You were pushing the limits today.
Oh yeah, no, it was just really chaotic trying to do all the conversion of the audio to text, and my wife and daughter were here earlier trying to get them out, and so everything was pretty crazy and
very
rushed,
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Simon Wales, thank you for another super chat. Appreciate that. Hi, Super Duke. How's your cape? How you feeling tonight, man? Hope you're feeling.
Yeah, that's right, man. Sorry to hear about that, Duke, man. Hope you're feeling, buddy. But good on him to go out and get into some good exercise, though.
Mm-hmm. Want to remind you that we got the weekend show this weekend. Lynn Wallington tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And Sunday, the After Hours show with John, Gemma, Lizzie, and Big Willie right afterwards. 3 hours a night, Saturday and Sunday. It's a good show. They like to hang out. They're positive people, good looking. You know, unlike the Monday through Friday show. How's your Pepsi in a Coke bottle?
Not quite as good as the original ones that they sadly stopped selling because I stopped buying them, but it's decent.
Nice.
Merle. I used to get these cool little Mexican Coke bottles that were just like awesome, but they stopped selling them because I stopped buying them. Shame.
Sandra, the amount you Merle, I'm surprised you don't have any Merle t-shirts from our store yet at spacedoutradio.com. Just saying. Just saying. I gotta get myself one of them Paranormal shirts. We got just over a minute, Johnny.
I cannot imagine what Mellon had to go through to get this article cleared.
Don't know. 45 seconds.
This is very detailed.
You're detailed.
Oh yeah, this makes me giddy, man. This is like
All right, 30 seconds. Thank you tonight to Cat Chaser, Carlito ×2, Simon ×2, Jennifer Flash Forward, Michael, Chris, and Marty for the awesome super chats. We really do appreciate the love and support that you guys give us here on Spaced Out Radio. So thank you so much. Here we go. Final half hour. Don't forget there's an after-hours show while I'm editing up. And then I get to go to bed and get ready for hockey in the morning. Here we go. We're round at third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with the fedora-wearing John Hudson and the unbiased UFO report. And John, right before the break, you were talking about this Power article from Chris Mellon. He is the former Deputy Secretary of the DIA and the DOD in the United States. And let's fill our audience in, who may not be familiar with Chris Mellon, why he's important to the UFO front.
Yes. So what you just said is correct. He was a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence in both the Clinton and the George W. Bush administrations, and later the Secretary for an information and later Secretary in Information Operations. He formerly served as Staff Director for the as well as for Staff Director of the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. So that is that special group that, has so much influence and has so much insight. This is someone who was a director of that group. On top of that, he comes from the Mellon family, which, if you believe in any of this family stuff, then that's very meaningful to you. As someone who comes from a family that has some means to them, I can tell you that it's not as meaningful as you think it is. It's actually usually more harmful than you think to be a member of a family like that. But he's served all sorts of different roles throughout defense departments, and I mean, this guy. I mean, you can go to his Wikipedia page. I mean, this guy has gotten award after award after award after award after award, and for whatever reason, he is someone who has decided, along with Lou Elizondo, to come forward about the UAP issue. And so he is by far the highest ranking, and in my opinion, most, reliable, public servant that we've had that come out in support of this challenge.
He has a lot of pull at the Pentagon and in Washington, D.C., but does that pull still mean, considering what side of the fence he's allegedly fighting on now, still mean that he has a lot of ability to convince politicians and members of these alphabet agencies that UFO disclosure is a good thing.
I'll be honest. The one place where being a member of a family does make a big difference is your ability to have access to communicate with others, and so what that means is that even if he had not been the very, very impressive individual that he has been professionally on his own, just who his family is, he would have the ability to exert some influence if it was something that he cared a lot about and threw his whole passion into it. As someone with that family background, with those concurrent family members currently serving in different roles all throughout government, friends of the family serving all throughout government, the reputation that he personally developed while serving. He has some very, very faithful followers, and so yeah, I think he does. I think he could still have influence because of what he did. I think he could still have influence because of who his family is, and I think the fact that he's got both in his camp means that he's still someone that is very, very influential if he wants to be.
Do you think both he and Elizondo are getting tired?
I think Elizondo might be. I don't think Mellon is at all, in any shape or form. Christopher Mellon is he's my kind of person. He'll look like that 3 minutes before he's dead.
He's probably had the same hairdo since he was 5 years old.
Yeah, but the passion and energy that guy has is outstanding, and no, I don't see. But keep in mind that Christopher Mellon has held for the most part a less. Well, actually, I don't know if that's a fair thing to say. He's held certainly a less public role than Elizondo has. So I think you could argue this whole process might not have been as hard on Christopher Mellon as it's been on Elizondo, right? Especially because of Christopher Mellon's financial situation insulated him from any of those challenges, right? So it's kind of hard. I mean, but he's certainly a very impressive individual, and to give you kind of an idea of kind of the circle he runs in, one of the funny things that came out of the interview was that several people within the Pentagon forwarded this debrief article to Christopher Mellon, saying he should read it, and he wrote it.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Which I love. It. It's like when YouTube recommends that I watch a YouTube show that I'm in. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, boy, yeah, try to pick another show, please.
Right. Of course, the fedora-wearing John Hudson here for the unbiased UFO report. All right, let's get to it here with any other news happening in the UFO world.
I mean, there's definitely some interesting things going on. There's some rumors that I've heard some rumors from a couple people that I trust a little bit that there might be something significant coming out around February 15th, but I haven't actually confirmed that in any way, shape, or form. So I don't have any faith in that yet. But I have heard a little bit of grumblings about it. But I gotta say that, I mean, and I know this is going to upset some people, but if you really want to put money on what I think might be coming next that I'm the most excited about, it's freaking that extended Patterson-Gimlin film, man.
I know.
I want to see the little one, dude. We got a couch for $16 million.
I'm very curious.
Seriously.
What is your thoughts of the Lou Elizondo documentary film being taken down off of Vimeo and YouTube?
Okay. I'm gonna give my real opinion here. I'm pissed off that he didn't put up a better showing. I think when you play the critic and you play the devil's advocate, you have a responsibility to play it to the nines dot your I's, cross your T's, and make sure that no one can find any flaw in anything that you've done under any circumstances. And that's not what he did. He threw up something that wasn't complete. And as a result of essentially a technicality, that's what I'm getting at. I find frustrating is it didn't get taken down because of its merits or its content or because of anything having to do with what he did, like what it's about. It's a technicality. It's because he used material he had no right to use, right? So it's like that's semantics, right? Like that's has nothing to do with the content. Now, unfortunately, people are going to conflate those as being related issues, but they're not in any way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah.
But in grand scheme of things, I'm pissed because I guess I would like to see a higher quality. Look, this is what I like about Mick West. Okay, Mick West tries really hard, right? He puts a lot of effort into what he does, right? He usually puts out some very high quality content. I like that. Even when I don't agree with him, I can appreciate that, right? And that's what bugs me about this. Is I would like to see a more professional. I would like to see a more top shelf showing, and that's not what we got.
Well, the big thing here for people who do not know that the documentary, which many are calling it a hit piece, including myself, on Luis Elizondo, the face of the UFO world right now, it was taken down due to a copyright infringement on YouTube and Vimeo, where one of the many people who you guys know on this show, he's been on here before, Thomas Fessler, along with myself, the Black Vault, Lou Jimenez from UCR, James Beattie from his movie The Phenomena, and many others had footage that the person who put the documentary together never asked any type of permission and tried to use the United States federal law of fair use. The problem that we have here is there are certain things and guidelines you can't use fair use on, and YouTube has their own rules regarding fair use and the security of their content creators. So when Mr. Fessler was asked to be a part of that documentary, he was the only one, and he declined, then saw his footage on that. He immediately contacted YouTube and put a strike up against the content creator, which made the movie or the documentary be reworked. Now, the question is, before I get you to speak here...
No, please.
The question is, there's no doubt the person who created this is going to redo the documentary, probably cut out those feeds. But the question is, will he cut out enough so that way he doesn't get it struck down again? Because there are a lot of people, from what I have heard from my sources, that are waiting to see when it goes back up, will there be footage from people whom are going to enact copyright infringement again? He could lose his entire channel over this.
Right. And the thing is that what's frustrating is that there's ways to do it, right? I mean, he could read a transcript, right? I mean, there's ways that you can get that content, right? If there's pieces of content that you really need that are part of what you're trying to talk about, there are many different ways they could do it. Like, for example, calling people and oh wait, but he called one person and was told no, which is maybe why he didn't ask anyone else. That's not a fair guess, but I find that funny.
Well, it's going to be interesting. It really is, and I know I've said that a few times already here, but there are already conspiracy theorists who are absolutely lambasting Thomas Fessler over this. For enacting this.
Smorgasbord for them.
And the other thing, too, is there is a lot of conspiracy theorists out there who believe the government took it down because they don't want this subject out. No, it wasn't the government. There's no conspiracy behind this at all. It is one content creator who is trying to prevent or to keep secure his product. And when you put another person's product up on your channel and your channel is monetized, you can't make money off of someone else's channel. I've done it. I've unfortunately had to strike people for using Spaced Out Radio interviews.
And it sucks. Nobody wants to do that. It's not fun.
The funny part about it is we're relaxed enough around here where all you got to do is ask. All you got to do, send me an email, send me a message on social media. Say, hey, dude, can we talk for a second? You know, tell me what your idea is. I can tell you right now, about 9.8 times out of 10, I will say yes. But if I find that your channel is monetized and you have my product on your channel, there's an issue.
Well, that's the thing is once your channel's monetized, you're playing by different rules. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just how it goes. Like, once you're monetized, everything's changed. You become a business.
I agree. Fedora John, I got to get to Shirky Poo's news here, so you just sit tight, and we'll talk to you in just a few minutes.
Yep.
All right, let's see what Shirky Poo has for us tonight. A man accused of intentionally driving it the wrong way on Highway 215 Beltway in Las Vegas has told the judge that the ghost of a NASCAR driver told him to do it. Daniel Asif faces charges of attempted murder, DUI, and battery with a deadly weapon after vehicle crashes reported in the area of Lake North Drive and Fort Apache near Sahara Avenue. In the court hearing, Asif told the judge that the ghost of Dale Earnhardt told him to drive the wrong way on the freeway in order to get the mayor's attention and bring NASCAR back to Vegas. Judge Ann Zimmerman noted that Asif reportedly had heroin and methamphetamine in his system at the time of the crash. He was asked to have $200,000 bail, including alcohol monitoring and a ban on driving, but the judge said Dale Earnhardt told her to set the bail at $500,000. And no more NASCAR. Taliban fighters will no longer be allowed to carry their weapons in amusement parks in Afghanistan. Wow, they're moving up in the world. Not partying like it's $14.99 anymore. They are partying like it is $17.99. There you go. All right, moving on. And the reason why Taliban fighters, many of whom have spent most of their lives in a 20-year insurgency against the U.S.-backed government, flocked to amusement parks in Afghan cities and towns after they took it over in August. Mujahideen of the Islamic Emirate are not allowed to enter amusement parks with weapons, military uniforms, and vehicles, according to Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahideen. Yep. They obliged to abide by all rules and regulations of amusement parks. The Taliban earned a reputation as uncompromising and often brutal enforcers of their strict ways when they ruled between 1996 and 2001, but since taking over in August, they have tried to present a more moderate face to their fellow Afghanis and the wider world as an interim cabinet grapples with a looming humanitarian crisis. All right, let's move on here. A change of guard took place this year at the realm of tortoises. Jonathan, a 190-year-old giant tortoise living in St. Helena, has become the world's oldest tortoise ever. Actually, it's a bit of an understatement. He is now the oldest Chelonian. The order of reptiles that includes all turtles, terrapins, and tortoises. Of the new record, Jonathan was already the world's oldest living land animal. The senior has certainly received the recognition his age deserves. He even got a letter from the Queen, but he tried to eat it. Just the way it goes, damn Jonathan. All right. A man in Florida allegedly threw a hot ramen noodle at a woman after the two allegedly got into a dispute about his dogs. 21-year-old Brandon Smith of Fort Pierce first allegedly attacked her with the ramen, then used the pot it was as a weapon. Yeah, the victim, whose identity has not been released for fear of other Florida man, told police she was up at about 7:20 a.m. in the morning last Friday because Smith was trying to put his dog on the bed and got angry. When she asked him to stop, he didn't. The woman claims Smith picked up a pot of hot noodles off the stove, threw the noodles at her, then allegedly struck her on the back with the same pot. Smith told the officers that he woke up and began making a pot of ramen. He said the victim was randomly chasing the dog around when she tripped and fell into the stove where the ramen was. Of course that happened. Over the past year, Smith has been convicted for multiple offenses, including cocaine, resisting arrest, and driving without a license. Yeah, he's being held on $5,000 bond right now. What a charming human being. And finally tonight, diners have a beef with a buffet in Pennsylvania after a massive brawl broke out when the all-you-can-eat restaurant reportedly ran out of steak. The fist fight that was caught on video happened at the Golden Corral restaurant in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, or Ben Salem, whatever you call it down there. The 4-minute video posted on social media captured the chaos that erupted as patrons shouted and a crowd started throwing punches and chairs at each other, knocking over tables while others backed away from the melee. Staff tried to intervene but couldn't calm the crowd down because there was no damn steaks on the barbie. By the time the mob left the dining area, paper, napkins, and other tableware can be seen strewn all over the floor, tables, chairs, and upturned. And a baby, of course, can be heard crying in the background. Seriously? Over steak? And all you can eat? They weren't even stopping. Hey, sometimes restaurants run out of food, people. You can't make this up. You just can't make this up. This is what happened. This is what happened. My goodness, I just shake my head. This is a world problem, people. There's not enough damn steak at an all-you-can-eat buffet. How many steaks are you pounding back? And it can't be a very good steak either. Think about it if it's at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Let's remember that. Want to say a big thank you to Shirky Poo for the news, the fedora-wearing John Hudson for the extendo version of the unbiased UFO report. Big thank you to Swamp Dweller for kicking on in with another spooky story, and our main man tonight, R Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your car, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to bring us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.